Don't see that every day.
Or ever.
There is a lot to talk about regarding the 7th installment in the Jurassic Whatever series. For example, the lukewarm reviews, the impressive box office haul, which kind of feels contradictory, those two things, and also the original director Steven Spielberg's thoughts on the new film. So today let's talk about 5 things you didn't know about Jurassic World Rebirth. Hey everybody, I'm Killjoy Jake, and instead of having friends, I have horror-adjacent dinosaur movies. These are horror movies, man. This new one was even kinda scary. Before we get into today's list, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to the page for more content on the latest updates in horror. Also, check out my horror gaming channel, GullGotha, if you're a fan of video games and live streams. One more thing before we dive deeper into Rebirth here, there will be spoilers ahead for the new film, so if you have not seen this one yet, go check it out and then come on back. Spoilers ahead. You have been warned. Thing number 1. It's been revealed by director Gareth Edwards that Rebirth had a ton of different opening sequences before we landed on the one we ultimately got for the film. At first, Rebirth opened with a dinosaur dying in the streets of London. We still got to see a Brachiosaurus dying in New York City towards the beginning, but this was originally supposed to open the film. It felt like a nice transitional piece to close that chapter of this franchise. Dominion felt like this gigantic movie that was all about dinosaurs roaming the globe, even though that was barely part of the plot and it was more about locusts, but point being, this is a good way to transition from something like that to a smaller story like Rebirth. It's another simple adventure story, which I feel like is really refreshing after the way too big for its britches film that was Dominion. Then, after the creative team here settled on doing an opening at the laboratory on the new island, Edwards wanted it to start with primates that occupied the island originally, watching as a giant monster in the distance seemingly destroyed their jungle. It was then going to be revealed that it was actually a massive construction site, basically tearing down the forest so that they could build this laboratory, which we see at the beginning of the movie. That would have led into the opening sequence we actually got, where the laboratory falls apart. The scene does feel a little rushed in my opinion. I would have liked to have seen this kept in. This scene also featured a crude early version of Mr. DNA that was cut at the request of Mr. Spielberg. Talking about this disagreement with Spielberg, Edwards said the last note was, by the way, take out all the nods and references to all the previous Spielberg films and Jurassic Park Easter eggs. It was one of those things where I disagree and nod and write it down and see what happens over the next few months. It probably feels like a snake eating its own tail. I wouldn't want to do that if I was them, but because I'm not them and I'm a fan and I love their work and so does the rest of the world, I feel like they're the only people in the world that have a problem with this. I get where both of these guys are coming from. Gareth Edwards wants to add something to the Jurassic Park lore with his new entry. Of course he would want to do that if you were attached to whatever came next in that franchise. But I also see it from Steven Spielberg's perspective, not wanting this new film to just totally rely on nostalgia. As hilarious as this may sound though, this is an interesting way to do nostalgia because it actually adds something to Mr. DNA's lore. Not that anybody is really pining for that in the franchise, but it would have been something better than just a callback, just the character popping up on screen for a second, like how he did in the first Jurassic World. Like that was cool, sure, but this sounds way better and actually something to think about. I agree that you can't be too reliant on nostalgia, but I do like when new franchise continuations are able to build upon what's already there, like showing us a little more of the backstory for the character who pronounces dinosaur in a really specific way.
Like dinosaurs, even dinosaurs. Bingo. Dino DNA.
You gotta love that little guy. Despite that note, however, Gareth Edwards was still able to sneak in quite a few homages to the original flick throughout this one. The scene at the dilapidated gas station is a total nod to the velociraptors going after the kids in the original film, and the T-Rex riverboat scene is something taken directly from that first novel that was never put to the screen before. See, that's nostalgia done right in my opinion, because while it does offer something new, it also still has a slight homage to what came before. Thing number 2, Spielberg did end up giving Gareth Edwards some more positive notes that I think made the film better overall. Although it seems like that nostalgia note was a point of contention, Spielberg still gave many positive notes to the filmmaker. Edwards talked about the advice Spielberg gave him, saying, he said, making a film for the cinema, it's like being a chef and making a meal. The only difference is that when you're a chef for the cinema, the audience has to leave hungry. If they leave full, you've kind of failed. This is really good advice for any movie in general. You want to have something intriguing, even beyond the credits that your audience is still thinking about leaving the theaters, but it's especially important for a well-established franchise like Jurassic Park. I mean, we are on the 7th installment at this point. You're gonna have people leaving the theaters no matter what is going on in this new movie, saying, oh my god, they're running out of ideas. To make a film that feels too final at this point would kill any sort of momentum this change of pace film is trying to kickstart. With Rebirth having an open ending, the idea that this DNA sample could be used for something that could benefit the entire world if it goes in the right hands, that could totally set up the story of a whole nother film moving forward, potentially even another trilogy. I also think director Gareth Edwards did a great job on reincorporating the horror elements into this franchise. Chatting with Rotten Tomatoes about the terror of the new film, Edwards said, "The first movie is very much a horror film, sort of disguised as a family adventure. It scared the hell out of me even as a 17-year-old when it came out. Now everyone who got inspired by that movie and became filmmakers are now adults, and it's a lot harder to scare them. We sort of upped the ante a little bit and kind of pushed the horror element a bit. And I couldn't wait for the studio to tap me on the shoulder and say, you can't do that. And they never did. I think because they felt the same way. But it's that kind of fun scare, like a roller coaster, like when you leave it's all okay. But if you came to Jurassic and you weren't scared, then I'd probably failed at my job." I couldn't agree more with Gareth Edwards. I remember leaving Jurassic World Dominion and just feeling like they didn't even try to put something horror incorporated in there. This movie was certainly an improvement upon that last one. Thing number 3, Scarlett Johansson, because of this movie, is now the highest grossing star in Hollywood. Adjusted for inflation, of course. Scarlett's movies where she has a lead role have grossed $14.8 billion, with more than half of that figure coming from her role as Black Widow in multiple MCU movies. Speaking of the MCU though, she may be dethroned soon, as Robert Downey Jr. is returning to the MCU for the highly anticipated Avengers Doomsday. He'll likely be in Secret Wars 2, the follow-up film in 2027. Despite the quality of Avengers 5 and 6, I imagine they're gonna make a ton of money. Now, after everything that went down with Black Widow, I don't see Scarlett Johansson returning to the MCU anytime soon. But maybe a new Jurassic World trilogy is on the horizon that she'll lead as Zora Bennett. We'll just have to wait and see. Speaking of the future of this franchise, thing number 4 is that the Jurassic World series has proven to be both resilient and unstoppable at the box office. It was a major shocker that Jurassic World Dominion still pulled in $1 billion despite its negative reviews. But now Jurassic World Rebirth just pulled in $318 million since its early release last Wednesday, against its $180 million budget. Now, this flick hasn't been received too positively either. It's gotten at best mixed reviews from critics and like lukewarm from the audience. It's also up against some of the biggest releases of the year coming up just in the next few weeks, like Superman and Fantastic Four, so that drop off is probably gonna hit hard. The way they approach this film, in my opinion though, is still pretty genius, and I think they definitely have another hit on their hands here. Looking at the previous film to now, Dominion had a budget of $256 million, and they cut that down almost by half to $180 million for this movie, adjusting for a slightly lower gross at the box office. Now, this was actually an easy thing to predict at this point with the slight downward trend of the Jurassic World franchise at the box office. But even with that being said, they've all made $1 billion so far. That's still a ton of money for all of those movies. Each Jurassic World film has made roughly $200 million less than the previous entry, so with that idea in mind, Rebirth will likely pull in somewhere around $800 million by the time its theatrical run is over. Because the budget is lower though, Rebirth only needs roughly about $450 million to be considered profitable. It's almost there only after its first weekend. It will definitely hit that at least. Despite the not so great reviews and the stiff competition, this movie is probably still gonna be a big success, meaning we'll probably get another one at some point in the future that hopefully has more time in pre-production to get some things figured out. They only had like a year and a couple of months to figure this movie out because of a lot of different factors, one including the writer's strike. I have a lot of faith in the Jurassic World series moving forward. I feel like this is the start of a minor uptick. And finally, thing number 5, this is one I honestly didn't even know. Every Jurassic movie has had some sort of scientific advisor on the project. Paleontologist Steve Brusatte was consulted on the designs and physicality of the dinosaurs in the film, and he respects the entertainment-forward blockbuster series for always having a focus on scientific accuracy. Talking with Live Science about the series, Steve says, ultimately these films are summer Hollywood montages monster movie blockbusters. They are not nature documentaries. They are meant to entertain, and more than anything, I am impressed and thankful that the Jurassic Park and Jurassic World series have always had paleontology advisors for all 7 films. They don't need to do this. I don't think most sci-fi films in outer space have astrophysics consultants, but the Jurassic franchise has always valued real dinosaurs. I feel like this is especially important to the Jurassic series, with Michael Crichton basically coming up with the idea for the first novel based on real science about dino DNA being found in amber mines. That basis in real science is something that has also been preserved throughout the series' history. There's also one big thing that he would want to change about the franchise overall. Talking about the biggest scientific inaccuracy of the Jurassic Park series, Steve says it has to be the feathers. The original Jurassic Park rampaged with all sorts of green scaly dinosaurs, which looked like overgrown lizards or crocodiles. That was in line with what we knew about dinosaurs at the time in 1993. But then, 3 years later in China, a farmer out working his fields stumbled upon a gorgeously preserved dinosaur skeleton embedded in rock. Petrified feathers surrounded the bones. This was the first of many discoveries of similar dinosaurs rapidly buried by volcanic eruptions, covered in feathery fluff. Interestingly enough, the most recent films have actually incorporated feathered dinosaurs into their plotlines. There's even an entire sequence in Jurassic World Dominion where they discuss this. Is it a loose way of fixing some of the science that we didn't know about in the past? Sure, but it does kind of work. I have been trashing Dominion this entire video. I have to throw some sort of positive its way. If you want to hear more of my thoughts on Jurassic World Rebirth, make sure to check out my review video here. So what was your favorite thing from today's video? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you all again for watching. Please subscribe, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.